Okay, so we are talking about letting go of fear today. Hopefully everybody can hear me. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up, give me a wave. Comment below who you are. I want to say hi. Let me know that you are here. And let's see, let's make sure that everything's good. Okay, so I wanted to welcome you today. The most important thing to consider here is to have an open mind. I'm here to help you let go of the fear that we a lot of times hold on to. I am Tiffany Roberts. If we have not met before, I love supporting people who are motivated to improve their lives by realizing and releasing themselves from fear. So I'm excited to help you remove that fear related compromise from your life so that you can experience and achieve all that you were meant to be, all your goals and aspirations. My husband and I own a online functional medicine health coaching where we help you improve your nutrition, your lifestyle, and most importantly, your mindset, which also includes letting go of that fear. So if you have any questions, let me know. Comment below and I will answer those as quickly as I can. So over 40 million people in the US alone suffer from anxiety-related disorders, and that's according to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. This means that 18.1% of the adult population will experience overwhelming fear and dread associated with anxiety at some point in their life. Fear as a concept might seem like a similar sensation, but it's generally considered that anxiety is used to define an ongoing sense of dis-ease or worry about areas of life of which may not present themselves as immediately threatening. So fear is what we feel in a scary situation. A sudden jolting or debilitating reflex response. Anxiety is less noticeable. It's reoccurring, and ultimately it can prove to be quite a bit more problematic in the way that it interferes with our everyday life. The impact both fear and anxiety can have on all areas of life, however, is huge, and it's not until we do a little reflection and introspection that we realize that anxiety is a compilation of our fears that we're unable to acknowledge and effectively express when they present themselves. So what happens to our body when we're afraid? Well, to begin with, let's talk a little about the physical aspect of the emotion of fear that we are all accustomed to experiencing at some point in our life. The commonly observed sensation of fear occurs in response to an external stimulus and causes the amygdala in the brain to release the hormone called cortisol. So cortisol is also known as the fight or flight hormone and is what causes our bodies to respond unconsciously and elicit anticipation of danger of attack from an external source, much like having a tiger right in front of us. From the amygdala, cortisol then travels to every muscle in our body and causes them to activate or tense up in fear. That's a response as the unconscious body prepares to protect itself from attack. So physically, cortisol increases the release of glucose in our bloodstream, primarily as a way to increase energy levels in immediate response to a dangerous stimulus. We need to have that glucose in our body so we can get going, right? The trouble with this is in today's age, it is not every stimulus presents a real danger. meaning that the glucose which gets sent into the bloodstream remains unused and over time can build up. So this is why stress, anxiety, and unprocessed fears can actually be at the root of many physiological issues such as diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and much more. Another function of cortisol is to assist the body to regain homeostasis after a period of stress, fear, or imbalanced releases of hormones. So the fight or flight response, is that showing up on there? Okay. The fight or flight response is when you are in high amounts of stress, okay? Let's see here. Oops, there we go. We are in high amounts of stress and we need to definitely get out of that response. This is the trouble with fight or flight reflex action in today's society. We are always in the state of fight or flight. We have evolved to protect ourselves from everything, where once our ancestors were triggered to run in flight from immediate life-threatening predators such as tigers, today's reality is not quite as dangerous. Cortisol is released in everyday situations which are not life-threatening. Dreading work meetings, anticipating spending time with family, or worst of all, taking public transport. Our bodies still respond to these situations in the same way, using excess amounts of energy as we enter into this protective mode. The human body hasn't yet learned how to differentiate between the dangers of, say, getting hit by a car or failing an exam. Both things elicit the same response in our brain, and as such, our bodies are overstimulated and flooded with unnecessary hormones. So what's the result? Well, you get unnecessary and unhelpful levels of stress. So what is the lesson here? To first forgive your body for its evolutionary assumptions. It's not your fault that these responses have become routine. The reality behind your fear response is that we must train our minds to react differently. To notice when you feel anxious, take an honest look at the situation and then decide if your body's reaction is justified or not. This is the beginning of letting go of your fears. So if we follow the guidelines set out in this last discussion, the truth of our fears, noticing them for what they really are, we can begin to differentiate between rational fears versus those that are not, okay? Usually there'll be some form of sign letting you know if your reactions are exaggerated or not, and it's so essential to remain aware of your surroundings for this very reason. Always be aware of yourself. Be conscious of your interactions with others during a period of so-called fear time. Are you creating tension where tension is not, really called for? Have you created rifts or noticed a shift in a positive energy of the interactions that you used to take for granted? Be curious about your fears, and if you feel comfortable to do so, ask those closest to you to identify some common patterns. Sometimes we don't notice our patterns, but those around us, do. So if you're really struggling to do so, if it's difficult, then ask for help. Ask someone to point out, what your situations call for, how you react to situations. So the answer to this question, is it within our power to change? It completely is. You have power to change this. The main problem is that, this question often comes up during a power struggle between maintaining and releasing control of fear. our own capacity to change is infinite. It is vital that we access this potential if we are truly going to thrive, okay? This is so important. Notice if if any of these statements that I talk about here kind of worm their way into your everyday dialogue. For instance, I'm not capable. I'd love to, but that's not for me, that's for someone else. I'm not able. So if any of those sound familiar, you need to change your inner dialogue that surrounds your fears. So can any of you relate to those statements? I used to, okay, until I changed it. The most important thing to consider when you're asking to let go of any fear is to fully acknowledge that, for what it is. Fully acknowledge it for what it is and how it is formulated in your mind. Only by familiarizing yourself with the fear can you hope to overcome it. You first have to know that it's there, right? Our 5 steps of releasing fear. Number 1, acknowledge that you have the fear. Number 2, release the control surrounding it. I release it, it's done. Step 3, decide which action can be taken to overcome it. Number 4, take this action to make lasting change, okay? You can't just change something and then go eat a sandwich, right? You have to put the work in. Number 5, put all effort, energy, and concern into creating and maintaining that change. Simply writing this down, taking an objective look at the role fear has been playing in your life, is the most effective and lasting way to make the changes in how you perceive and deal with your fear. Another way to get a hold of this is to find a fitness trend. There is so much to be gained from practicing yoga and meditation regularly that the mental health benefits often get forgotten in favor of more immediately visible and obviously physical benefits. Many of these practices are derived from ancient teachings spanning centuries of knowledge passed down from teacher to student, with the ultimate goal of realizing our true nature and calming the mind to prepare for a stable meditation. Does this sound like something that allows fear, anxiety, and fluctuating moods to accompany them? No. Many people report feeling lighter and more themselves after practicing yoga or meditation. The good thing about this is that it allows us to cultivate a more stable foundation for all difficult emotions, not just fear and anxiety, okay? Today we're focusing just on fear, but there are many, many other negative emotions that we can deal with by doing these simple steps. From this stable base, we are less susceptible to succumb to one of the onsets of fear and anxiety. And it doesn't mean that they won't occur, just that we have a capability to deal with them and become stronger when it does happen. That's what's important. It's often said that depression occurs when we're living in the past, and fear or anxiety occurs when we try too hard to live in and predict the future. This means that living in the now becomes an almost impossible task, especially nowadays. An impossible task which is necessary if we are to truly let go of fear and release ourselves from the grip and to grip on to good. Through various practices like meditation, mindfulness, and other creative pursuits, you'll find a noticeable difference in the capacity that you possess to start present, okay? Making this a priority as you move forward in your life also has been proven to be extremely useful in fighting symptoms of other mental and physical illnesses as well. Later on, I will post an article that describes one man's overcoming his addiction to drugs by letting go of the fear and using meditation to stay present. So I'll hope you can read that later. So gratitude. Gratitude is something that we highly talk about in our practice. And gratitude is a practice which, much like meditation and yoga, can be powerful and immediate effect on us. The areas of the brain which activate during a practice of gratitude are the same places which are associated with the release of dopamine, the pleasure and happiness center in our brain. By drawing awareness back into the present moment and away from perceived fears or stories and mental meanderings, gratitude has the capacity to bring an anxious and fearful person from a bout of uncontrolled anxiety back into the present moment and towards contentment. It really can be that powerful. We start, our day with gratitude and happiness, and that centers us and brings us to a more peaceful place. This fantastic capacity to have both an emotional and physiological response in the body is part of the reason why gratitude is so powerful, and it is an all-around healing tool for releasing fear, anxiety, and negativity. So if you don't believe me, I will put in another article in the link below after this chat so that you can read just for yourself, okay? So the state of consciousness known as the flow state, which is characterized by periods of intense focus and undistracted concentration on one specific task. Studies have shown that those who spend more time in flow experience have lower levels of anxiety and fear, so that it can be a very effective way to manage your day. Many artists describe their most profound artistic insights as stemming from a state of flow, and it's also known to be a period of low emotional fluctuations, where the areas of the brain associated with learning, happiness, and positivity are active. So in order to experience what it's like to let go of fear and reduce anxiety, we need to spend a little more time in flow. So what does that mean? Well, flow looks different for everyone. For some, it can be, obvious creative pursuits, much like the artist. Some people like to write, journaling, singing, drawing, painting, taking pictures. I love taking photography. But these are definitely not the only ways. Absorbing activities such as gardening, walking, running, reading, cooking, cleaning, even just being, wholly absorbed in your work for a period of time are all ways to spend time in flow. So just basically concentrating on what you're doing here and now. So sometimes the most effective way to let go of fear is simply to let go a little bit and learn how to trust. It's been proven that fear and anxiety regularly stem from deeply ingrained need to control our environment and a fear of trusting it. The reason for this is that anxiety thrives on the possibilities of failure and disaster that it finds in every given situation. Even if there are no apparent threats, anxiety will find a worst case scenario in everything and zoom in and hone in on that. So does that sound familiar? It has been proven that fear and anxiety regularly stem from deeply ingrained need to control our environment, okay? So while being aware of this, it's helpful. It's not always enough to combat the intensity of your fears. So building a self-trust is essential for this. So now we will go through some helpful ways to encourage your sense of self-trust. So think about what areas you feel like you lack trust in, okay? So honor your emotions. Self-trust is only established through having a real and honest connection with your emotions. Honoring emotions when they arise for precisely what they are and how, and as they can be, it can be a difficult task, right? So release the need for others' opinions and approvals. Many of us seek approval from peers and family and partners simply for the rush of that dopamine it provides. Identifying this kind of pattern can be hard to admit and face, but will ultimately strengthen your resolve in the long term. So just don't care about what others think. As we honor our feelings, be it crying when we're sad or expressing gratitude when we're grateful, or allowing an emotion to admiration to surface about someone we love, we create a safe space for that emotion to exist. Reducing the resistance surrounding it creates a nurturing space for that emotion. So just as we cultivate a safe place to nurture a child, our feelings must be acknowledged and supported and given the opportunity to grow. By doing this, we can begin to allow a problematic emotion and begin the journey towards moving past them. In terms of fear, often just acknowledging that the presence of fear is enough to lessen that intensity. Silence. I have to do this every single morning. I have to have silence. Okay. How many of you are guilty of feeling fearful of silence when excited, irrational speech or actions which don't actually, lend themselves to your goals? They neither fulfill your desires nor do they solve or support your fears. Sometimes sitting in silence with anxiety and fear can prove one of the most daunting tasks in the world. And this is precisely why it's so important. By allowing fear to, the time to settle down, it comes clear in our minds and we can more easily put things in place to combat it. So basically, just listening to yourself without everyone just around you, no external forces, identifying what you're going through, acknowledging that it's there, and then figuring out how to combat it. This isn't, an invitation to block it or ignore it. Ignoring is not a good thing. Okay, the opposite is, in fact, very true. Stillness forces us to deal with the feelings and start from a place of stable awareness to change them. Meditation is an excellent tool for this, and as is mindfulness and breath awareness, and even just taking time to be by yourself in nature. In the morning times, I have to have my stillness, my quiet, so I can just center myself so I can be the best person I need to be for everyone else during the day. So the practice of mindfulness involves remaining present and mindful in the moment, no matter what the situation around us. This is easier said than done, and especially if we are used to letting, the monkey mind take over and lead away instead of sitting with our emotions like fear and anxiety. You will find, however, that by merely returning yourself to the moment and ensuring you remain present instead of drifting into an imaginary thought or what ifs, you will begin to see the fears in a different light. So try these following steps. Notice the way that your body might react physically to external triggers. Figuring out triggers in this way is crucial in gaining the freedom from fear and anxiety we all seek. Notice the small things around you. Beauty in nature, sounds in the distance, or basic bodily sensations that we take for granted. This right here is mindfulness. This is becoming present. By doing these things, we become able to turn our fears into beneficial surges of energy, which can then be used to our advantage. We've already discussed the benefits of meditation for releasing fear and anxiety. However, there's a specific method which specifically benefits anxiety and fear more effectively than others. Loving kindness meditation is exactly what you'd expect it to be. A way for us to direct attention and awareness back towards a part of us which is comprised predominantly of love, kindness, and acceptance instead of fear. Making this shift away from fear and towards love is hugely beneficial. Focusing awareness on your heart during meditation and repeating heart-centered mantras draws our attention away from the threatening side of experiences and towards a positive, life-enriching aspects. So basically, send out more love to yourself and to others. So it's funny how we tend to indulge in the things that least serve us, right? When it comes to fear, letting the imagination run away with us and staying in a negative cycle of fear indulging habits is the main issue we find ourselves stuck in, quite often, almost every day. When we observe an emotion, fear, or sensation, it's up to you on how you deal with it. Indulging the sensation will strengthen it. Allowing it more time and energy when you know it's damaging is probably the worst thing that you can do, right? The hardest part of all of this is that the only way through is to be strong and to not let that thought take charge. Take note when you start feeling fear and anxiety, ignore it, choose another outlet for it to be expressed, and let go of fear, okay? Stop waiting for the right time. I don't know how many times I hear people, I'll start that when. Many of us allow fear to dedicate important decisions. We long for the clarity to know exactly what the outcome will be and everything will, be with it, resisting to take an action until the right time presents itself. Unfortunately, this very often leads to the indulgence of fears and the lack of action in every part of our life. The right time is now. The reality is that, the right time may never actually occur, and waiting for it to end up, is, for us postponing our lives and prolonging states of suffering that really don't need to be endured, okay? In short, waiting for the right time means that fear wins. Let me say that one more time. In short, waiting for the right time means that fear wins. Do you want this to happen? If you're serious about combating fear and releasing yourself from anxiety, it's time to take action and act against the limiting beliefs. So what will you do to take action? So root causes. Many modern holistic medical approaches like functional medicine will advocate the importance of assessing the root causes of illness. This is because there is simply no point in treating the symptoms of any illness, be that mental or physical, with drugs or prescribed methods without addressing the cause. By treating symptoms, you reduce only symptoms. In discovering the root causes, you can easily get to the bottom of these root causes and remove them for good. Or at the very least, help yourself or a loved one to become aware of what's truly underlying fear and anxiety. Do you see the difference? The same goes for fear. You can't possibly hope to remove your fears for good without doing a little bit of inner work and seeking the knowledge of what may be the reason or the origin belief behind all of it. So functional medicine is in so many ways by itself, not just healing from anxiety and fear, but it's an all-encompassing kind of program, okay? So language, expressing emotion does not come easy to everyone. It didn't used to be for me. Emotional intelligence and the language of emotions refer to becoming skillful and aware in the way that we experience and express emotions on a regular basis. We often have heard the phrase, like, I'm just stressed out, or I'm just really tired. You know, this is used to cover up sensations of fear, anxiety, and other related issues. It's one thing to use words as an excuse, not to talk about the roots of an issue. It's another thing to entirely believe them as fact. Becoming emotionally literate is vital if you begin to take control of your emotional state and let go of the emotions which no longer serve you, like fear. Quite often, it's not the case of emotional illiteracy, merely that many of us require a safe space in which to express these feelings. Believe me, I was there. Not anymore, though. So letting go is the only way to access unlimited contentment and satisfaction in life, whether it's fear, anger, love, hate. Any example of intense emotion can be hugely impacted by cultivating the ability to let it go. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring your difficult emotions. Letting go involves an intricate process of looking, acknowledging, accepting, and moving through your difficulty to truly process, an assimilation, any important life lesson that you undoubtedly need to learn from it. When it comes to fear, the process might differ slightly from those, involved in letting go of, say, an unhappy love relationship or even grief. Okay. Each fear within this space will vary differently. Okay. Sometimes it seems like the most reckless thing to do, but ultimately letting go helps us to cultivate a sense of inner strength in ourselves and trust in the world, which then allows for greatness to manifest outwards. So are you ready to let go? You know, if you are ready to let go and you want a little help in doing so, please reach out to us. We have a whole program that we can actually work with you to identify the strengths and the weaknesses that you experience and help you grasp the fear, the anxiety, whatever emotion that you are having a hard time dealing with. We can help you fine tune that and show you the proper steps in creating, a life of letting go of that fear, opening up your abundance, opening up your true optimal self. So if you do want a little help, let us know. PM me, reach out to us at Back to Nature Lifestyle Medicine. I'm so glad that you joined me today. Thank you for hanging in there. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm here to help you.